As we continue with the data visualizer, we're going to go over a couple additional concepts. We will now go over creating a pie chart. We'll talk about adding in additional data dimensions, such as funding agency. We will define the layout of a pie chart, which is a little bit different when compared to bar charts and line charts. We will show you how to clear the chart dimension selections so you can start making other types of charts when you're in the data visualizer app. We will also go over drilling down using the organization unit hierarchy for deeper analysis of your data. We will explore additional chart options, such as sorting your chart values from highest to lowest. We can also remove the data values from the chart to make it a little bit more legible for charts with a lot of data items. We will demonstrate the integrated applications in DATIM that allow you to move between charts, tables, and maps seamlessly. We will also show you how to arrange dashboard items and share these dashboards with other users. Okay, so now that we've added that item to the dashboard, let's get back into the visualizer and make a different type of chart. So before I created a bar chart and I had a very rough sketch of what I wanted my output to look like, this time we're going to create a pie chart. And similarly, we have an output of what we want our chart to look like. It's a very rough sketch, but we want new on ART by agency, and we're going to do this again for the last financial year. So I'm going to go through the process of building my chart up again. The first thing I do, I go to my data elements, not my indicators because I'm interested in a raw data value. I'll select my data element group of DL, all demo data. I'll allow that to load the data elements. Once that's loaded, I'm going to select New on ART as my particular data element by double-clicking on it. The next thing I'm going to do is select my period, which is my when aspect of my data dimension selection. And I'm going to leave this as the last financial year, which is the default selection. The next thing I'm going to do is select where, which is my organization unit. Demoland is already highlighted, and I want this particular chart to be an overview of the entire country. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it on Demoland. Now we've selected our what, our when, and our where, but this time we want to add an additional dimension, and that is funding agency. You'll see on the left-hand side, underneath organization units, we start to see additional data dimensions. Here I see funding agency, and if I click on that, it's going to load the funding agencies that are associated with this particular account. I want to select all of these funding agencies. If you remember from the rough sketch that I had, all of these particular funding agencies were included in that pie chart. So I'm just going to use the double blue arrows to move everything over from available to selected. So now that we've selected everything from our data dimension selection, we should select the proper chart type. Its default selection is this bar chart, but I'm going to change this to pie chart. Now I'm going to update to see what the output looks like for my particular chart. Okay, so this doesn't really look like what I had intended. If you remember, what I wanted was each of the individual slices of my pie to be reflected as the agencies. So the reason this looks the way it does is because the layout is not correct. When we were dealing with bar charts, we knew we could move things around the category and series as our X and Y axis. In this particular case, I'm going to click on Layout, and we'll see what the chart layout looks like. We see that funding agency has been defaulted as our series, and category as our period. You can see up top, in green, we have the period, which reflects the pie chart. In a pie chart, a category can be thought of as the individual slices of the pie. So if we look at this particular figure, we can see that the categories are separated according to the slices on the pie, and that's exactly what we want our chart to look like. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select my funding agency as my category, because I want my funding agency to be reflected as the category or slices on the pie of this particular pie chart. It's going to move period to the filter. What I want I want something in my series as well. I'm going to take data and move it into my series. For this pie chart, we always need to have something in our filter, in our series, and in our category. And actually, it's not so relevant what's in the series. If I click on Update, you will see that this is now much more closely reflective of the drawing that I've created earlier. If I go to Layout and I alter the period with the data, you'll see in fact that the numerical values within the chart are the same. So what's most important for the pie chart is that we get the category correct. You'll see up top that the title changes based on how we've created our layout for this particular chart. But we can of course change the title in our options. And if I update, we'll see that the title has now changed to be much more reflective and descriptive of this particular chart. I'm going to go ahead and save this chart as a favorite so I can add it to my dashboard later. So I click on Favorites, I click on Add New, I'll enter the favorite name and give it the same name as my chart title. Click on Create, and now you'll see that this particular chart has appeared in our favorite lists. Alright, so I've created this pie chart, but now I want to create an additional chart. I'm in the data visualizer and I have selected several options. Now rather than go through and deselect all of these options, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear this chart. In order to clear the chart, we click on Chart in the top right hand corner and we click on Clear Chart. This will go through the data visualizer application and remove all of our previous selections. Alright, so now that we've cleared the chart, we're ready to make a new one. In this particular example, what we want to show you is how we can use the organization units to drill down and investigate your data a little further. So I'm going to go through the same process to build this particular chart and select my what, my where, and my when. So in order to start this process, I selected data elements. I'll select my data element group. I'm going to make a chart for current on treatment. So I'm going to double click TXCur, just the NDST value. I'm now going to select my when, which is my time period. I'm going to leave this as my last financial year, which is the default selection. Then I'm going to select my organization unit, which is Demoland. If I go ahead and click on Update, it will update the chart for me. It's not a very descriptive chart, it just shows an overview of the total current on treatment for Demoland, for the country. If I want to compare the regions, I can right click on Demoland and click on Select Subunits. This will highlight the two regions for me. If I click on Update, now we see here up top, Animal Region and Food Region appear. This means that my Animal and Food Region, or my organization units, have been defined as my filter, and that's why they don't appear on the x-axis. So in order to remedy this, we go to our layout and we move the organization units from our filter to our category. So let's go ahead and update and see what that looks like. We can see that animal region has much greater value for current on treatment when compared to the food region. So let's investigate animal region a little more and see what's going on within this particular region. So I'll right click on animal region and click on select subunits, and I'll update the chart once more. So now we see Bird District has the highest value in this particular region. We can investigate Bird District a little further and see what the sites look like within Bird District. So I'll right click on Bird District, select subunits, it will highlight all of the sites for me. We'll click on Update again, and now I will see all of the sites within Bird District. We can see that Parrot and Woodpecker site in particular have higher values when compared to the other sites within this district. So this is how we can use the data visualizer to drill down within our different data elements to investigate data a little further. Now let's say I want to actually look at all of the sites on this particular chart for TXCur. So I'm going to close these expansions and I'm going to highlight Demoland. I will select the gear icon and change to Select Levels. Now I will select all of the sites within Demoland, which is in country level 4. And this is different depending on which country you're in and the naming conventions you use for your hierarchy. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and click on Update. We see here it loads all of the data for all of the sites for TX Current in Demoland. Now this is a bit hard to see because we have all of these different data values. It's only sorted alphabetically. So let's go ahead and make this a bit easier to look at by sorting this from the lowest to the highest data value. So in order to do that, we click on Options, and you'll see Sort Order. Right now there is no current sort order. We can change this then from low to high, and it will sort this from lowest to highest. If we click on Update, we'll see what this looks like now. It sorts the data values from the lowest data value to the highest data value, and we can see by far Parrot site has the highest data value for TX Current within Demoland. We can also expand this chart and make it full screen by clicking on these triple arrows in the corner, right beside Update. And when I do that, it makes the chart a little bit easier to read. I can also remove the number values on top of the different pieces of the bars by going back to my options and removing Show Values underneath the Data option. If I click on Update, we can then see what the chart looks like. We can of course hover over the particular sites to see the data values. I'm going to go ahead and save this chart as a favorite so I can then add it to my dashboard later. So I'll click on Favorites, Add New, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Create. Okay, so after I click on Create, we'll see that it now exists in the Favorites. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. Now all of the tools within DATIM are actually integrated. So I've created this chart within the data visualizer, but it might be much easier to see if I change this to look like a table. In order to do that, I will just click on Table, and then I can use this option, Open this chart as Table. We can see here it's a bit difficult to read the sites and the data values. But now when I open this chart as a table, we can see that it's quite easy to read the data values. Of course, we can also sort by using these up and down arrows from highest to lowest, from lowest to highest. I can save this as a favorite, which I'll go ahead and do. And I'll click on Create. I can also open this as a map the same way as I did before. So I can go back to the previous chart that I had by going to Chart and going to Open Last Chart. This will go back to the last chart that I had made in the data visualizer. So you can see that this is the previous chart that we had made in that example. I'm now going to open this chart as a map. I could have done this from the table as well. So I click on Map, and I go to Open this chart as Map. When I do that, it's going to load the GIS application and transfer this data and place it on a map. So what we see here is all of the sites. We'll of course get into the GIS application a little bit later on. I'm just going to add the boundary layer very quickly and save it as a favorite. So it has taken the TX current for each of the individual sites and then mapped them. I've just added the boundaries just so we can see the country layout. I'm going to go ahead and save this as a favorite as well. click on Create. And let's go home and add these items to our dashboard. Okay, so now that I'm back at the dashboard, I can simply add items to the dashboard like I did previously. So if you remember, we created a pie chart, we've created a bar chart, we've created a pivot table, and we've created a map. So let's add these items to the dashboard. So we can see here, we have charts, Demoland New on Treatment by Funding Agency. This is the pie chart that I've created. I'm going to go ahead and add that. I'm going to go ahead and add the other options as well. So you see here, they actually have the same name, but we see one is a chart, one is a map, and then we also have a pivot table. So I'm going to add these items. Just by searching for them. Alright, so we are having a look at this dashboard. We can arrange this dashboard to make it look a little bit nicer, and we can also resize some of the objects. So in order to move objects around, I simply drag the dashboard item and move it into place. I can resize items by using the resize option that we were shown previously. And now that we have these items on the dashboard, we can also share this dashboard with other users. So in order to share the dashboard, I click on Share. I then search for the user group. These are pre-made user groups. In particular, we're looking for this group, Demoland Analysis Users. This includes all of the users in Demoland that have been given analysis rights. So I click on that user group, and then I click on the plus sign. You will see here that the Demoland Analysis User Groups has been added at the bottom. We can then change the permissions. Either can view, where they can just view the dashboard. We can also say edit and view. They can then remove items from the dashboard or move items on the dashboard around, or remove the dashboard itself. If I've made a mistake and added the wrong group, I can click on this X right here, and it will remove that particular user group from the dashboard sharing. So when I've added that group and I've edited the permissions, I then click on Save, and it will then share that dashboard with all of the users within that particular user group.
Alright, so let's just review some of the concepts that we've introduced in this demonstration. We started off by creating a pie chart. We did this by selecting the chart type up at the top. We added in an additional dimension, the funding agency. We can add in additional dimensions for analysis on top of the data element, period, and organization unit when performing our analysis. When creating pie charts, we emphasize the importance of the category in the chart layout. The category represents the slices of our pie chart and should be considered closely when creating this type of chart. We were shown how to clear charts by clicking on Chart and Clear Chart. This removes all the data dimension selections from the Data Visualizer application. We also went through drilling down data using the organization unit hierarchy. We did this by either right-clicking on the org unit and selecting the subunits, or highlighting the parent org unit and selecting the appropriate level. A couple additional chart options were also demonstrated. This includes removing or adding values to the chart, as well as sorting the chart. We also demonstrated how the Data Visualizer applications are linked to the tables and maps as well within DATIM, and we can move between these applications seamlessly. Once we had created our chart items and saved a number of favorites, we added these items to the dashboard. And we were shown how to arrange dashboard items simply by dragging and dropping the objects. As a last step, we were shown how to share the dashboard with other users. We do this by clicking on Share, searching for the user group, clicking on the plus sign, assigning permissions, and then clicking on Save in order to save those dashboard sharing settings.
Alright, so that covers most of the data visualizer and dashboard basics. For the next session, we'll talk about the pivot tables.